Emily had never stayed that late at the office before. The advertising firm where she worked usually cleared out by 7. But tonight the clock had crossed 9, and the floor was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. She stacked her files, shut her laptop, and rubbed her tired eyes. It had been one of those long days where nothing seemed to end, and all she wanted now was to get home, sink into her couch, and forget about deadlines. When she stepped outside, the drizzle surprised her. The parking lot stretched empty, just rows of shiny asphalt glowing under the flickering streetlights. She clutched her bag tighter, wishing she had replaced her broken umbrella. It wasn't a storm yet, but the rain fell in soft sheets. And she hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should call a cab. That's when headlights swept across the lot, cutting through the misty drizzle. A black sedan pulled up slowly, stopping right in front of her. The window slid down, and Emily's heart gave a quick jolt. It wasn't her boss behind the wheel, it was Daniel Harrison. His son Daniel was younger, maybe mid-20s, with that easy kind of charm that made people notice him without trying. Emily had only seen him a handful of times at the office when he came to visit his father. And each time he carried himself with a quiet confidence. He was different from Mr. Harrison, who was always stern, composed, and untouchable. Daniel had softer edges, something more open in his gaze. "You're still here this late?" Daniel asked, his voice casual but warm. "It's raining pretty bad. Do you need a ride home?" Emily froze for a second, caught between practicality and hesitation. She wasn't sure how it would look, her taking a ride from the boss's son. The office was a place where whispers spread faster than any memo, and she had no desire to become anyone's subject of gossip. Still, the rain grew heavier, and the street looked emptier by the second. Her car was parked at the far end, and she really didn't want to walk across the lot, soaked through, just to drive home shivering. So she smiled faintly, pushing her worry aside. "I'd appreciate that, actually. Thank you." She stepped into the passenger seat, shutting the door quickly as the sound of rain muffled behind the glass. Inside, it was warm and quiet, the scent of leather mixed with something faintly crisp like fresh air and cologne. Daniel glanced at her. Just a quick look before focusing back on the road. The car moved smoothly out of the lot, tires hissing against wet pavement. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Emily sat upright, her hands folded neatly over her bag, her eyes on the raindrops racing down the window. She could feel the weight of the silence, thick and strangely charged, as though there was something unsaid hovering between them. Daniel was the one who broke it. His voice was low, hesitant, almost like he had been debating with himself. "You know, I've been meaning to tell you something." Emily turned, surprised. "Me? What would you need to tell me?" He kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the steering wheel, though she could see the tension in his jaw. "It's not easy to say. Maybe I shouldn't. But tonight, seeing you out here alone, I don't want to keep it to myself anymore." Her heartbeat stumbled. She didn't know what to expect, but his tone was serious, far from small talk. "Daniel," she said carefully, "you barely know me." He let out a short laugh, but it wasn't playful. "That's what you think? But I've noticed you for a long time. At the office, at events. Even when my father barely acknowledged you, I saw the way you handled yourself. You work harder than anyone, and yet you never ask for recognition. You're not invisible, Emily. At least, not to me." His words stunned her. She looked back out the window, watching the blur of passing lights. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not even her closest friends. People praised her work ethic sometimes, yes, but this was different. This wasn't about her work. This was about her. "You shouldn't be saying this," she murmured, half to herself. "It's complicated." "Your father, I don't care about my father," Daniel interrupted, firm but not harsh. "I care about what's real. And what's real is that every time I see you, I feel something I can't ignore." Emily's breath caught. The car slowed as they reached a red light, and the glow from the traffic signal washed over Daniel's face. In that moment, with the rain sliding down the windshield and his eyes fixed ahead, Emily realized this wasn't a casual conversation. This was a turning point. She wanted to say something, anything, to break the intensity. But her throat was tight, Her words stuck somewhere between disbelief and fear. She had walked into that car thinking it was just a ride home. Now it felt like she had stepped into something deeper, something she wasn't prepared for. Daniel turned his head slightly, just enough to meet her gaze. His voice was steady, though his hands tightened on the wheel. "Emily, I don't know where this will go, but I can't stay quiet anymore. You deserve to hear the truth." The light turned green, and the car rolled forward again, carrying them into the uncertain night, carrying her into a confession she never expected to hear. The car moved smoothly through the rain-slicked streets, city lights blurring against the glass. Emily sat rigid in her seat, unsure where to look. Daniel's words still echoed in her mind. Heavy and impossible to ignore, she finally spoke, her tone light but trembling underneath. "Daniel, you don't even know me." "Not really?" He shook his head quickly, his eyes fixed on the road. "That's not true. You think I don't notice, but I do. I've been watching for years. Long before I ever worked with my father, I saw you at events, in meetings, in the background. You always stand strong, even when no one gives you credit. That means something to me." Emily blinked, caught off guard. She wasn't used to anyone looking at her like that past the surface, past the job title. For so long she had been the dependable employee, the person people relied on but rarely thanked. Yet here was Daniel speaking like he saw her clearly, like he understood. She tried again to push back. "But you shouldn't say these things. It's not fair to me, to you, to your father. You can't just—" Her voice trailed off and she looked out the window, the world rushing past in streaks of color. She felt unsteady, like her heart was running faster than her thoughts. Daniel's voice came lower now, almost vulnerable. "I know it's not fair. I know it's complicated. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Pretending I don't feel this—it's exhausting." Emily turned to him sharply. "Feel what?" For the first time that night, Daniel's composure cracked. His fingers flexed against the steering wheel, his jaw tightened, and then he said the words she wasn't ready for. "The truth is, I like you. More than I should. Maybe more than I can explain." Emily's chest tightened, her breath catching as though the air had shifted inside the car. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't understand what he was saying. But his voice carried a raw honesty that stopped her. She whispered, almost afraid of her own words, "Daniel, do you even realize what you're saying? This could change everything. If your father ever found out—" Daniel cut her off, his tone steady but fierce. "I don't care what my father thinks. I've spent my whole life living under his expectations, trying to be the perfect son. But this is the first time I feel like I'm choosing something for myself." Emily pressed a hand to her lap, gripping her bag as if it could anchor her. The sincerity in his tone was undeniable. He wasn't playing a game. He wasn't teasing. He meant every word, and that was what terrified her most. She tried to laugh, a weak, nervous sound. "You're too young to know what you want." Daniel glanced at her, his eyes sharp in the dim light. "Don't say that. Age doesn't change what I feel. You think I'm careless, but I've thought about this for a long time. Every time I saw you smile in a meeting, every time you spoke up with ideas that no one listened to but should have I noticed. And I realized something. I don't just admire you, I care about you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to push it away, but the truth was she had noticed him too. Quietly, from a distance, never daring to let her thoughts wander. He had always been her boss's son off limits, untouchable. But now, sitting beside him with the rain filling the silence, she felt that line between them blur. "Daniel," she started, her voice shaking. "You don't understand the risks. People talk. Your father, he depends on me. He trusts me. If he thought there was even a rumor about us—" Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel, his knuckles pale. "Let them talk. Let him think what he wants. None of that changes what's real between us right now." Emily's chest ached. She wanted to tell him there was nothing real, that it was just a moment, just emotions stirred up by the rain and the late night. But when she looked at him, she saw the truth in his eyes, clear, unwavering. and painful in its honesty. The car slowed as traffic thickened, red brake lights glowing in long lines ahead of them. Inside, the silence grew heavy again, filled with everything left unsaid. Emily pressed her forehead lightly against the glass, the cool touch grounding her. Finally, she whispered more to herself than to him, "This isn't right." Daniel turned to her, his expression softening. "Maybe not. But when something feels this strong, how can it be completely wrong?" Her heart clenched. No one had ever said anything like that to her. No one had ever looked at her with such open, unguarded feeling. And the worst part was, she couldn't deny that it stirred something deep inside her, something she had kept buried for years. As the car began to move again, Donnie. The city outside blurred in streaks of red and gold as the car pushed forward through the rain. Emily sat frozen, her breath uneven, her heart pounding too loud in her chest. Daniel's words still rang in her ears. "I think I've fallen in love with you." For a long moment, she couldn't speak. She stared out the window, watching droplets slide across the glass. But nothing could drown out the storm inside her. Finally, she found her voice, though it shook. "Daniel, you don't know what you're saying. You're caught in a moment. It's late, it's raining, you're thinking things that..." He interrupted, his tone calm but unyielding. "Don't do that. Don't brush this away like it's nothing. I've thought about this for a long time, Emily. This isn't sudden. It isn't just the rain." She turned to him, her chest tight. "But you can't feel this way about me. You're your father's son. I work for him. Do you realize how dangerous this is for me?" Daniel's grip on the steering wheel tightened, but his eyes stayed forward. "Yes, I realize it. And I don't care. For once in my life, I don't care about rules or expectations. I only care about what feels true." Emily shook her head, pressing her lips together. She wanted to shut him out to end this before it grew any deeper. But his voice, steady and vulnerable, was pulling at something in her that she had buried long ago. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the hiss of the wipers and the hum of the engine. Emily could feel the air thick with tension, as if every unspoken thought filled the space between them. "Daniel," she whispered, "you're making this harder than you know." He glanced at her, his eyes searching hers. "Then tell me it means nothing. Look at me and say you feel nothing at all. If you can do that, I'll stop." Her throat closed. She wanted to say it to end this fragile thread before it snapped. But when she looked at him's earnest eyes, the quiet plea in his expression, she couldn't. Her heart betrayed her. She turned away quickly, her hands trembling in her lap. She said nothing. That silence was enough for Daniel. He drew in a deep breath, his jaw tightening as if holding back emotions too heavy to release. "You can't say it," he said softly, "because you feel it too." Emily closed her eyes, willing herself not to cry. She hated that he was right, hated that he saw through her so easily. She had always kept her feelings locked away, hidden behind professionalism, behind caution. But tonight, Daniel had torn through all of it. The car slowed as traffic lights shifted from red to green, their glow painting his face in fleeting colors. Every mile they drove seemed to bring them closer, not just to her home, but to something neither of them was ready for. Emily's voice came out unsteady. "This isn't fair to either of us. You don't understand the cost. You're young, Daniel. You still believe love is enough. But life is more complicated." He shook his head firmly. "Maybe it is. But I'd rather face complicated than spend the rest of my life wondering what if." Her chest ached at his words. Part of her wanted to believe him, to give in to the warmth rising inside her. But another part, the stronger part, knew that surrendering to this feeling could destroy everything she had worked for. The car turned onto a quieter street now, lined with darkened shops and glowing lampposts. The world outside seemed hushed, as though even the city knew the weight of what was happening inside that car. Finally, Emily spoke, her tone soft but edged with desperation. "Do you understand what you're risking by saying this to me? If your father even suspected..." Daniel's voice cut in, low and steady. "I've spent my whole life risking myself for my father's approval. This is the first time I've risked something for my own heart." His words hit her like a wave, stealing her breath. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw the sincerity etched into every line of his face. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't playing with her. He was standing on the edge of something real. Her pulse raced. She tried to force logic into her voice, even if I did feel something, it can't go anywhere. It would ruin us both. Daniel slowed the car as they approached another stoplight. He turned to her, his expression raw, unguarded. "So you admit you feel it too?" Emily's lips parted, but no words came. She was caught, trapped between denial and truth. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. Daniel leaned back against the seat, exhaling slowly, as if her silence was all the answer he needed. His voice dropped to a whisper, almost broken. "Then I'm not crazy. This isn't just me." Emily felt her heart splinter. She wanted to reach out to comfort him, to explain the war raging inside her. But she kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, forcing herself to stay still. The car rolled forward again, the rain easing to a drizzle now. But inside, the storm was far from over. Neither of them spoke for the next few minutes. The tension was unbearable, but neither dared to break it. Emily's mind spun with reasons, warnings, fears, while her heart clung to the dangerous truth she could no longer deny at last. Daniel's voice came again, quiet but resolute. "I don't know what happens next, but I had to tell you. I had to let you know what's in my heart, even if you can't return it." Emily swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. She wanted to tell him she felt the same, that his words had shaken her more than she could admit. But fear held her back. The car turned onto her street, the familiar row of houses appearing through the mist. Her stomach twisted, knowing the ride was ending, knowing she had no answers for him. And as Daniel parked in front of her home, the silence between them felt heavier than ever, filled with confessions that had no place to go. The car stopped in front of Emily's house, its headlights casting pale beams across the wet pavement. The rain had slowed to a mist, leaving the night quiet, almost too quiet. Neither of them moved. The engine hummed softly, but inside the car, silence pressed down like a weight neither could lift. Emily stared at her front porch, the light above it flickering faintly. This should have been a simple end to the night. Step out, say thank you, walk away. But nothing was simple anymore. Daniel's words, his confession, still wrapped around her, holding her in a place she wasn't ready to face. She finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Daniel, you can't love me." He turned sharply, his brows furrowing. "Why not? Tell me why I can't." Her chest tightened. She hadn't wanted to reach this point. She had hoped to escape with silence, to let the night fade without answers. But he was staring at her, demanding truth. "And she couldn't hide forever, because your father," she whispered, her throat tight. "He's the reason I can't." Daniel's face shifted, confusion clouding his features. "My father. What does he have to do with this?" Emily's hands clenched in her lap. Memories pressed at her, things she had buried, choices she had made long before Daniel had stepped into her life. "Years ago, before you ever came to the office, I made a choice that tied me to your father in ways you don't understand." He leaned closer, desperate. "What choice? Tell me." Tears pricked her eyes. She wanted to explain, to lay everything out, but the truth wasn't simple. It was messy, painful, and heavy enough to ruin them both. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "If you knew the whole story, Daniel, it would shatter you." He searched her face, hurt flickering in his expression. "You think I can't handle the truth? You'd think I'd walk away if I knew." Emily turned to him, her eyes wet. "It's not about what you can handle. It's about what you shouldn't have to. You're young, Daniel. You're just starting your life. You shouldn't be carrying the mistakes of your father or mine." His hands gripped the wheel, his knuckles pale. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away? After everything I said? After admitting you feel something too?" She flinched, her heart aching at his words. I never admitted anything. But Daniel shook his head slowly. You didn't have to. I saw it in your eyes. Her breath caught. He was right. For one fragile moment, she had let her guard slip, and he had seen the truth. And now there was no undoing it. The porch light outside flickered again, reminding her that this moment couldn't last forever. She reached for the door handle, her movements slow as if her body resisted leaving. She paused, her hand resting on the metal, before speaking one last time. Some truths don't set people free, Daniel. They break them. And I can't be the one to break you. Open the door, the cold night air rushing in. Rain mist touched her skin as she stepped out, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. For a moment, she stood still, her back to him, her heart racing. Behind her, she heard his voice, low and raw. Emily, wait. She froze but didn't turn. You think walking away will protect me? He said, his voice thick with emotion. But it won't, because I'll still feel the same tomorrow. And the day after. And every day until you tell me the truth. Her eyes closed tightly, tears slipping down her cheeks. She wanted to go back, to hold him, to let herself believe in a love that felt impossible. But she knew better. Some lines couldn't be crossed, no matter how much the heart ached. Without a word, she walked up the path to her door. Her hands shook as she fumbled with her keys, the sound of the car engine behind her like a distant echo. She turned the key, stepped inside, and closed the door softly. Inside, the house was dark and quiet. She leaned against the door, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. For a long time, she stood there, listening to the rain, listening to the silence, fighting the tears that threatened to consume her. Outside, Daniel remained in the car, staring at